Hi, Katie.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Nice to meet you. How are things?
It's nice to meet you too. Good. We are getting over a cold in our house, so
Yep.
love the summer colds. But
I know, seriously.
aside from that, doing well. Really enjoying the summer, and we have a pool near us that's super great for the little ones. So
That's great. That's wonderful. Who's up behind you?
my dog. That's Bentley.
Bentley.
He likes to
Oh,
be involved in
yeah.
everything.
I have two dogs. I get it. How old is he?
Oh gosh, we got him in 2021, so I think he's like almost 5 now.
Oh, wow. Nice. He's cutie.
Yeah.
Do you have any other pets?
We have 10 quail and 13 chickens.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And then I used to have a horse. I still work with them, but we had to put him down in March of last year. So
Oh, I'm so sorry.
yeah.
Yeah.
But we love our animals here.
Well, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm from the Central Ohio area, and I'm a stay-at-home mom to 3 little boys, and they're all very close in age, so that keep me very busy. And so my husband works for 2 different departments, so we're kind of like learning the full-time, part-time balance right now. But when he's home, we do a lot of outdoor stuff. Like I said, we have chickens, so we're like kind of doing a homestead type deal in the neighborhood, so as much as you can. And then, like I said, I also work with the horses. So yeah,
That's great.
lots of
Wow.
fun.
What got you started with the animals?
I've always loved them, and I've always been around them. The horses, actually, I had a friend growing up who had horses, and so I would go over and we'd ride and like follow none of the safety rules. But that kind of blossomed my love for horses. And so when I was 7 or 8, my dad found a local barn and asked about how I could get involved out there. And so that started a journey of me working in exchange to ride. So like cleaning stalls, stuff like that. And then for my 8th birthday, my parents got me a week of camp at a horse camp near us, which I ended up going to for 8 years and then worked on staff for 4. It's actually where I met my husband too. And so it's just been like part of life since then. And we've always had a dog and we've always had animals. The chickens and the quail are new. But all in all, like I cannot imagine a life without them. So
Yeah. Wow. Wow. That's a lot of animals. I have 2, and I think that's plenty. You must have so many eggs all the time.
so the chickens are still not quite at laying age yet, but I'm sure we'll be overwhelmed with eggs by then. But the quail, we get about 10 eggs a day. So like, yeah, we're getting a lot.
Wow.
A lot.
I don't think I've ever tried. You can eat quail eggs, right?
Mhm.
I've never tried one. Do they taste similar?
They're pretty good. They're like, so it's 3 quail eggs per 1 chicken egg, but they're like creamier and I feel like almost have a fuller taste. I feel like much better in bacon than chicken eggs personally.
Right.
But we're waiting for the chickens to lay eggs, obviously. But since we've been waiting, we've only been using quail eggs for everything. And I mean, they have like higher protein per size, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I feel like our family really enjoys them. They're also really good for people with like chicken egg allergies because you can eat those instead. But I feel like by and large, there's not a huge difference except for the fact that they're tiny.
Wow, that's super interesting. I've seen them at the stores. Like I lived in Amherst for a while, and they used to sell them there. I feel like Stop and Shop probably doesn't, or I just don't see it. But I've never tried them. I'll have to try them sometime.
Yeah, they're pretty good.
I like to bake too, so that's a good suggestion. I'll try that.
Yeah, I feel like they make the cookies that I've made and stuff like that just make the flavor pop more. Like I don't know how to explain it, but they definitely are much better in my opinion.
Yeah, I'll have to try it. That's great.
Yeah.
So you said you have 3 boys. How old are they?
My oldest is almost 3.5, and then my middle is almost 2.5. They're 13 months apart, and then my youngest is 4 months old.
Wow. Oh my gosh, you're very postpartum, my friend.
Yes.
Congratulations. How are you feeling?
Thank you. This is the best postpartum by far. I definitely struggled with postpartum mental stuff with both of the boys, whether it be postpartum depression or postpartum anxiety. So this time around, like I feel like we're doing a lot better. Definitely tired adjusting to life with 3, but all in all, this has been a really great postpartum season.
Do you think it's because you're more aware, or do you think it was just different hormonally this time?
I think there were a whole lot of factors playing into it. When I had my husband actually started fire school a week after he was born.
Great.
Yeah. So there was a lot of that. And I had postpartum depression with him. And I feel like a lot of it was due to just like not taking care of myself very well. I definitely dove down the crunchy hole with my first.
Okay.
And I would consider myself crunchy now. Like I am definitely more aware of ingredients and stuff, but like I'm still going to get Chick-fil-A. And
like it's all about balance, right? Absolutely.
Exactly. And so I really like started taking care of myself a lot more like that postpartum period when I got pregnant with my second, because I was only 4 months postpartum when I got pregnant with my second. But I do think a lot of like just the busyness of that change in life, because my husband was actually a mechanical engineering student at OSU and was only a year away from getting his degree when he decided to switch careers. So that was just a crazy life change. And then postpartum with my second, we had to move into my parents' house when he was 4 months old. So like just not having our own space was really rough. So this time around, I was aware of the fact that I was like predisposed to postpartum stuff. So my midwife was really great about helping me support my body in preparation for that. But we also, praise the Lord, got our own house when I was 36 weeks pregnant. So we've been able to be in our own space. And I feel like that's made a huge difference. Like we finally have a safe space and I can kick the boys outside if I want to. So I feel like there's been a lot of factors, but I'm definitely thankful that this time's been so much better.
Yeah, that's great. I'm happy for you. You made a lot of big changes in a short amount of time. Like,
oh yeah,
they're young and you've done a lot.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We definitely did not choose the easy path. That's for sure.
Yeah. So you said you met your husband while working with animals?
Yes.
Great. And what were you doing? How did you guys meet?
So that horse camp that my parents bought me a week of camp for, it's a Christian horse camp. And I went 1 week every summer from the time I was 8 to the time I was 15. And he happened to be there the same week each year. So we like crossed paths the first time when we were 12 years old and had like little camp crushes on each other. But, you know, like camp was about Jesus and horses, not about boys. And also, you know, we only saw each other that 1 week a year. And so there was really no reason for me in my head to like do anything about it. Plus I was 12. Like,
Right.
But we kept crossing paths each year. And then when we were both 16, we actually joined staff at camp. And that was a unique experience for us just because you could be a camper until you were 17. So we were younger than some of our campers and we were the only 16-year-olds on staff. And we just like clicked instantly. Like, and for me, it was like, oh crap, this is the kid that I've had a camp crush on forever. And I don't think he realized who I was at first. But so we became really close during that summer because like it's 2 weeks of training and 8 weeks of camp. So it's kind of really hard to like put up a mask for that long when you're going through all of the experiences that you do at camp. I mean, it's a wonderful blessing, but like also, you know, dealing with, you have 10 kids in your cabin and you're teaching writing lessons and you're doing all the things and it's like Sunday to Friday each week. So you're like, it's a lot. And so I think that was really great for our relationship actually, because we just didn't have a chance to like hide anything, if that makes sense. And so we got really close, both denied that we had any feelings for each other, but we continued to keep in contact outside of camp. And he lived an hour and a half from where I was. So we would go on, I would call it dates now, but at the time we were just hanging out.
Right.
And like he came out on a mission trip to India and he came back, came over to my house after to help me with my jet lag again. You know, all of it looking back on it was clearly
How does one help another person with jet lag?
Well, it was a 9.5-hour time difference. And so like when I got back, it would have been like 7 p.m. India time. And so the goal was to keep me awake all day. So that was the help. But then, and so that was 2018 and camp ended in August of 2018. So in January of 2019, we finally admitted to each other that we liked each other. But we had really both wanted to make sure that like marriage was something we could see for ourselves, like because we were both really raised with the ideal that like you're going to date to marry, not just date to date. And so we spent 2 months just really like praying on it, talking about it. And then in March of 2019, he asked me out. So then we ended up going to camp again the next summer and being on staff there again. And then there was another summer after that, 2020, that he did not work on staff, but I did. But like now that the farm, it's called Marvin Valley Farm. It's like so intertwined in our lives. Like we can thank pretty much everything for the farm. Like he proposed there. We had our wedding there. So
That's really sweet.
it was a really cool story.
Yeah, that must be really nice to have gotten married where everything kind of started for you.
Yeah, it was really neat. And all of the staff at the farm has become family. So they were all there too, which was really cool.
That's so nice. Wow.
Yeah.
How big was your wedding?
Way bigger than we wanted it to be. We had like 150 people. I think my husband and I both would have preferred a much, much smaller ceremony, but we got married at 19. So my parents were paying for the wedding. So we were kind of at their whim of who they wanted to invite. And it was a beautiful day, but I am one of those people where I get very overwhelmed with lots of people. And so I kind of kept to myself the whole time, but it was nice. I mean, we had a short ceremony and I don't know if you've had Lee's chicken, but that's what we had for dinner.
Nice.
Really good fried chicken. And then we did a barn dance instead of like regular dancing, which was a lot of fun.
Cool. That's great. That's wonderful. That sounds like a really nice wedding.
Yeah, it was fun.
Great. So you said he almost graduated college. Did you know that he was thinking about becoming a firefighter?
So from the time that I met him until the time that he told me that he wanted to be a firefighter, he was on the path to do mechanical engineering in the Air Force. And that was, I think, largely like imprinted on him by his parents. His mom was an aeronautical space engineer in the Air Force. Yeah, like super smart. And his dad did like worked with the bombs or something, I don't remember, but they were both in the Air Force. And so he has 2 older siblings and neither of them went down the engineer route. So it was kind of a lot of pressure for him to do it. But I also knew when I met him that was just not where he was going to stay. I didn't know what he was going to do, but I was like, I just cannot see him at a desk job. This is not him. So he had been going through the mechanical engineering school, like I said, for 3 years when he decided that he wanted to do the firefighting. And it kind of came out of nowhere. Like now that he's in it, it's like, absolutely, this is where God has placed you. This is what you're supposed to be doing. But at the time it was like, wow, I can't believe that was even on your radar. But it also felt like as soon as he told me, like, this is the right place for you. So he was supposed to go to school, like start his 4th year at OSU that August. And that's like, he decided like the week before classes started. So he ended up calling OSU saying, hey, I'm out, like not coming, and signed up for the fire program that started in January. So he had like 4 months off of schooling before he started that. And yeah, like I said, he started school when I was a week postpartum. So that was a lot, but it was definitely the right choice.
Good.
Yeah.
So what about you? Did you go to college?
I went to college for a little bit. I went to a Christian university in the middle of nowhere for a worship degree and ended up dropping out right when COVID hit. It was just a very toxic experience, unfortunately. So in the worship department specifically, it was very, I don't want to say legalistic because that was kind of the whole school, but it was like, if you haven't had so many years of lessons or experience or whatever, you're not going to make it. And like, I was a vocal primary and a piano secondary, but I was self-taught in the piano. So I got a lot of flack for not doing like piano lessons growing up. And like I auditioned for the worship team. They have a touring worship team and was told that I don't have the right look for it. Just a lot of really not great things. And the school itself like has some really good foundations, but they're very much on the legalistic side of like, if you don't read your Bible every day. If you don't do this, if you don't do that, then you're not like a real Christian. And it was just a really, really bad environment.
Yeah.
So I ended up dropping out of that and going to community college for interpreting for ASL.
That's so cool.
It was fun. I didn't end up finishing that though either because we were in the middle of COVID and learning ASL over Zoom is a nightmare. My mom went to school for interpreting, and so I grew up with ASL and I knew a lot of it. But it was just, I think that when the kids are older, I might go back and do that because it's such a beautiful language and such a cool community. But it was just a really tough to learn in a Zoom setting, especially because like when you're learning the language, you want to be surrounded by it. And like none of the deaf community events were happening. There was no opportunity just to be around deaf people and to practice sign because the world was shut down.
Right.
So after that, I ended up doing horseback riding instruction full time until I got pregnant with my first. And so that was like, I think 4 years of teaching. And I really loved that. And eventually I want to get back to that. But ever since then, I've just been a stay-at-home mom and I love it.
That's wonderful. You probably have so much amazing time with your kids and time that's really invaluable. Like they're never going to get that back.
Yeah.
Right. And you're not going to get that back. They won't care, but these are your kids that you want to have the memories with. Right.
Yeah.
So,
it's been a huge blessing.
That's great. I'm happy for you.
Yeah,
do you still have time to yourself? Do you still do something on the side that's for you?
I do. My husband's really good about making sure that I get some me time. And most of that is me going to the barn and riding. Like I said, we had off the track thoroughbred and he was amazing. He was a challenge, but like definitely my heart horse. And he ended up getting a traumatic brain injury in March of last year, which I mean, I've been around horses my whole life, but I didn't ever consider that horses could get TBIs.
Yeah, I would not have known that.
Right. And so we kind of had to put him down pretty unexpectedly, but thankfully the barn manager and barn owner allowed me to continue to just work and stay riding whatever horses are there. So that's usually my free time, but I've been really passionate lately about just like building community because I feel like people are really bad at that, whether it be like community with other moms or just women in general. So recently I've been putting together like little ladies' nights for people to come over. We did a farmer's market one. And we like decorated market bags, and then everybody brought homemade items, and we got to shop the market. So that was fun.
That's a good idea. I like that.
Yeah,
especially
it was
if
a lot
like
of fun.
A homestead. You probably had a lot of stuff you could bring to that.
Yeah, it was really cool. I mean, we had everything from like pot holders to homemade butter to eggs to skincare. It was really neat. Really neat.
That's very cool.
Yeah,
that's great. Wow. Now you mentioned that you knew your husband wasn't gonna be an engineer. Didn't expect the firefighting thing. How did that, particularly with you being a week postpartum, how did you feel about that decision that he made?
I think because he had technically decided while I was still pregnant, like I think I was like 20 weeks pregnant when he had decided, I was okay with it. Like I said, I knew that he wasn't going to be in the mechanical engineering, and I had always just prayed like, okay, whatever he's supposed to do, Lord, like just make it really clear, because he had so much pressure, like I said, from his family, and he was actually terrified to tell his family that he chose firefighting. They're super supportive now, but it was a scary conversation to have.
So for 3 years of college, I can see how that would have been kind of difficult, but it's a very noble profession. There's nothing to be, embarrassed about, but I'm sure it was just a hard conversation.
It was. Well, and he's a first generation firefighter. Like it was very foreign to them. And so for me, it was just like, okay, well, if this is what you want to do and you feel like this is what the Lord's calling you to do, let's figure out how to do it. And I will say, like, being a week postpartum and going to class, that was difficult. But there was never a question that this was what he was supposed to do. And so I was very excited to be able to help him figure that out. And in Columbus area, you basically either have to decide between being a Columbus firefighter or doing a township. And so Columbus has the fire academy, it's the Ohio Fire Academy, but they only open up registration every 2 years. And then if you get in, you have to live there for the time being that you do your schooling. Now, it is shorter schooling. They combine the fire cards and the EMT, but it's like 8 weeks of like 9 to 6 of them living there. And so we were like, that's not something that we want to do because we know we're about to have this baby. Like, who knows what that's going to look like. And so, you're not guaranteed to get in, even if you take the civil service test and all the things, like there's no promise that you're going to get in there. You're put into a lottery and then you just hope that they pull your number for that year. But we have several post-secondary schools that do fire. And so that was the route that he went down. And so he did a semester of Fire 1, a semester of Fire 2, and a semester of EMT. So he started schooling in like January of 23 and graduated in May of 24. And that was really great because class was like 2 days a week. He was able to come home. He got a lot of connections with like local departments. And so by the time he graduated, it was very like he got his first job prior to even passing the NREMT. Wow. So that was really great. But all that to say, like, I don't think there was never a doubt in my mind that that was where he was supposed to go. And so it was like really cool to be able to see him finally find something that he was super passionate about, because you could tell that the mechanical engineering just was not it for him. And I feel like he really blossomed once he started that schooling.
Was it what you expected it to be now that he's been doing it? And he's on 2 departments, so he must work a ton.
Yeah, I don't really know that I had a whole lot of expectations. I mean, like, truly the only exposure to the fire department that I'd ever had was not actual real exposure, because it's just all the silly TV shows, that don't actually do anything. Totally. And so the only expectation that I really had was like hoping to find a good like family within the fire department. But aside from that, it was just kind of like, all right, we're going to roll with the punches and see how this goes. thankfully his schedule, so he works full-time at a department, which is the 24/48. But then his part-time department right now, he's only working PMs on 6 days. So it's not terrible. Like he'll come home from work, have the day off, and then go to work at like 7 p.m. and then be home the next morning. And he does that every 6 days. And then there are some nights where he is home. But it's nice because like the baby's sleep, all I have to worry about is getting through the night and then he's back home. And eventually he's going to go back to the part-time department to do 6 days for 24-hour shifts too. But he's actually about to start paramedic school. So he's trying to figure out his schedule leading up to that.
Yeah, that's a very demanding program, at least here in Massachusetts.
Yeah, it's a 13-month program here, and it is on unit days, which is I'm grateful for. So he doesn't have to worry about like really changing up his work schedule.
Oh, that's
but it's
cool.
going to be a lot.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I think most of the programs that are around here are, I mean, back when my husband was in paramedic school, I think it was about 2 years.
Oh, wow.
But he did medic school before he started at the fire department. So I don't know how it would work if you're on the department, but he was hired as a paramedic and a firefighter. But some firefighters will be hired knowing that you have to finish paramedic school within a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
But for him, he already was. So I'm not sure how it would work.
A lot of the township departments around here will hire you part-time as an EMT. It's just hard like to find a place that'll hire you full-time as an EMT. So that's how his full-time position works, that he has 36 months from the time of being hired full-time to get his medic card.
Yeah, so I think it's something similar here. You know, if you're hired as a firefighter paramedic, but you're not a medic yet, you'd have to go to school within a certain, like within 2 years or 3 years or something like that. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
What about you? Do you think you have ideas or plans after the kids are a little bit older and in school? What do you think your path would be?
So I do plan on homeschooling the kids, but I would like down the road to start teaching lessons again, which actually might be happening sooner than I thought because there's some changes happening in our barn. But I just love teaching. I never wanted to be a teacher. I don't enjoy teaching in the classroom setting, but I've done the horseback riding instruction for at least 10 years now. And I've always loved it. But I also grew up doing a lot of music. I was in band and orchestra and all the things. And so I think it'd be really great when they're older to do like some sort of community orchestra or community band, because I do really miss playing in a group setting. So those are like the two things that I think I'd really want to do. I don't ever see myself going back to work unless it's like a major necessity. But the nice thing about the horseback riding is that it does pay. And I also do photography like part-time. I've never really done it full-time, but I've done weddings and stuff like that. And so I'd probably up my availability on that too.
Yeah. Did you teach yourself or did you take a course?
I mostly taught myself. I did take one photography class in co-op when I was like 13. But for the most part, it was just teaching myself. So, and I've done that since I was like 12. I made it a business when I was around 16 and I've really enjoyed that. And I still do it here and there, but 3 kids and the youngest being 4 months old, it's kind of hard to find the time.
Yeah. How are you going to photograph a wedding while you're also being like, hold on, I'm just going to pop them on the boob for a quick second?
Yeah,
right. That's really tricky. That's hard.
Yeah. I have become a master at finding the right time to go sneak away and pump, but it is still difficult.
It's demanding for sure.
Yeah.
Wow. In your experience so far, what has been the best part of being a firewife?
Honestly, for me, it's just been seeing my husband like flourish in something. We have had such a unique experience, I feel like, in the fire department, between him not being a firefighter when we got married and like going through the schooling later in life. And also we're 24 and he is one of the oldest people in both of his departments, which is wild. Yeah. And so like there really isn't as much community as I had hoped because everybody's so young and there's not a whole lot of like firewives or anything because, they're a bunch of 18-year-olds.
That's crazy. Like who's training them? Who's showing them the ropes?
There are some, so his part-time department, his chief is also a captain at the city department near us. And so he's got a lot of really good experience. He's been great. But like their assistant chief is 27. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. So the part-time department is where my husband started. And he like probably 2 months in got put in IC positions because it's just so small. And so they had a really big emphasis on training though. Like they'll send them to different conferences and stuff, which was really nice for him. And then at the full-time department, they have like most of their command staff. I say most, there's like 3 command staff, but most of their command staff is older and has been in the department for a long time. But at this point, they've poured so much into like Seth and a couple of the other older guys that like my husband's Seth does most of the training at this point. And he's only been in the fire service for like 2 years.
That's insane.
Yeah, it's very accelerated just because it has to be because they're both more rural departments and there's such a wide scope of what they do. Like at his part-time department, it's almost entirely rural, but you have things like water rescue, but then there's also like the silo rescues, and then like we have some Amish in our area, so there have been MVAs with Amish. Like they just
that's interesting.
Yeah, and then they're close enough to the city that they have some city things. So there will be, we don't have any real high-rise fires, but there will be bigger fires. But then at his full-time department, it's near a pretty popular lake. So like they have to know ice rescue because in the winter people go ice fishing. But they also have a ladder because we've got these like multi-million-dollar homes out there. So, I mean, it's a lot like that they have to know. But because it's more rural and because they're the first on scene for maybe 10, 15 minutes of time, they have to know pretty much everything. So both stations at this point, he rides in charge on his shifts.
Wow. Yeah, it's interesting. It's different than, I guess, a bigger department because a bigger department would have, I guess, more specialized trucks, more specialized, maybe more specialized staff, right? Like people who are trained to do the water rescue, people who are not. I would think, I'm not sure. But does that make you feel unsafe in any way, knowing that you have a bunch of 18-year-olds coming to see you?
I know that everybody is really good at what they do, okay? And I'm not close, but like I know most of the guys pretty well. So there's a part of me that's like, I know the shenanigans that happen at the station. I'm like, man, I don't know that I'd ever want you to come to my scene. However, they are all very good at their jobs, and they're able to like flip that switch, you know? So for me, it's not even like an unsafe thing. It's just that I know so many people in the department that I would feel weird about calling 911, because even though like our home would be served by the city department, pretty much everybody that works at the part-time department also works at the city department. So like if I could tell you who was going to respond to my house on which day. And so I'm like, I just pray that I never have an embarrassing emergency, because
nothing ever happens while you're taking a shower, right?
Right.
That's funny. I guess that's one of the things to consider if you're living near your fire department, right? Like we live too far for that. So it would be people that I don't know.
That's good. Yeah.
Good enough, right? Like it's good to know that you can trust the people who are in the department, but also good to not be thinking like, hey, I'm going to see you at the Christmas party and you just saw me, you know, flipping in the shower or something, right? So
yeah. Well, I did already have one embarrassing experience with this part-time department. I had dropped, I don't know if you've ever seen those like big glasses of lemon juice, but I had dropped one on my toe.
Oh, no.
And my husband was on shift. And at the time we were still living with my parents. So we were like 40 minutes from his department, but I had the kids by myself. I was like, I'm not going to go to urgent care. And I really probably don't need a whole lot of care, but it's fine. So I drove to the fire department. And I have POTS, so like the whole time my blood pressure is like all over the place. I'm like, don't pass out, just make it to fire department, it's fine. And when I got there, I did almost pass out because of my POTS. So I was like laying down on the pad and they came over and checked, and his chief was there, which made it 10 times more embarrassing. And he was like, yeah, we're gonna have to transport you. And I was like, I cannot believe that I just drove 40 minutes to have to transport me to the hospital.
Have just driven to the hospital.
Well, and like they told me they had to call once a lady stubbed her toe and call 911. And I was like, I'm not gonna be that person.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna use valuable resources. So I was like, that's my one embarrassing call. We'll keep it at that.
Yeah, that's not that bad. It could have been much worse.
That is true.
So did you get a bunch of stitches or what happened?
Yeah, I had an open fracture actually. So they had to, I like completely broke the tip of my toe off. The like edge of the bottle hit it just right that it like hit the nail bed. Wow. And so I did have to get stitches. And thank goodness. So my husband was on shift, but his chief let him take me home, and like my boys were with him. So my boys stayed at the station with my husband while I was at the hospital. And then while on shift, my husband picked me up, took me home, and went back. And his chief was like, yeah, no, we got it covered. Like, didn't dock his pay or anything. So nice. That was really great. Yeah. So
wow. So you made the right call.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's fracture. Jeez, that's crazy. Just from a lemon juice bottle.
I know. Well, that's why it was embarrassing. I was like, seriously, of all the ways.
Yeah.
Lemon juice bottle.
What do you think the hardest or worst part has been for you so far?
I think honestly, the hardest part for me has been the lack of community that we found, which is a real bummer because you hear about all of the firewives all the time, like really getting close. I went to a firewife conference in September of last year and was met with a lot of negativity. I just didn't really, the conference started, so it was a training conference for the firefighters, and then they had like get together for the women, and it was supposed to be like, how do we support each other in the fire service, whatever. Well, the first question that they asked was, what's your least favorite thing about fire service? Like, it was just a very negative start, and then the whole thing turned into women complaining about their husbands, complaining about jobs and everything.
Oh, that's too bad.
And it was a real bummer because like, while yes, there are hard parts to the job, absolutely. Like for me, I've like never been prouder of my husband, and I love the schedule. Like, sure, forced overtime kind of sucks sometimes, but also for the most part, he's home 48 hours at a time. He's home way more than he would be if it was a 9 to 5. Right. And like, he gets to be involved with the kids, and I get to take them to the fire station. And so that was just a real big bummer to me because I was still relatively new to the fire service at that point. And they all kind of just told me like, just you wait, it'll get worse. And so I was like, well, I don't really want to be around an environment that like bastards our husbands. And so that was like several local departments, like nobody specifically from his departments, but I have since then found a couple like friends that are in the fire service, and it's really nice, you know, things like when you're scheduling something saying I'm open this unit date instead of having to explain the 24/48 schedule and stuff like that. But like I said, most of the departments are just so young, and so that has been kind of tough because like that was something that I was really looking forward to as he went into the fire service. And we've decided that we're going to try and build that community. So at his full-time station, we do Saturday shift pizza nights, and so we'll invite everybody, because there's 3 stations at the full-time department, so they'll all come to one station, and no other families have come yet. However, it has built a lot of camaraderie between the different stations, which is good. And like, we're hosting a cookout on Thursday of this week for his part-time department, so it's definitely been tough, you know, just because I had that expectation of this is what's going to be here, but you know, also it's like, well, if it's not, then I'm gonna create it. So
yeah, I wonder if maybe you're just a little ahead of the game, right? Like most people don't get married at 19. And
right.
While that's wonderful for you guys, maybe in 10 years, you're going to be the experienced firewife, and you're going to have all these new people coming into it and
for sure.
to you for advice. And like, how did you deal with it with young kids, and how did you build the community?
Yeah.
So, I mean, good for you for continuing to want to do it. It would be very easy to give up and say, well, I tried, and like, what am I supposed to do about it, right? But I think you should keep trying. I think that's fantastic that you're doing that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's tough though. I hear what you're saying, because you have young kids, and now would have been a great time for you to have that.
Yeah.
But the flip side of that is, as you get older, being a young mom, when your kids are a little bit older, you're going to have the time to hang out with your friends, right?
Right.
Whereas
That's true.
and I speak from being on the flip side of that. Like, I didn't have kids that young. My first daughter, I have two kids. My daughter, I was turning 31, right? So ancient in terms of parenthood. And so now I have young kids, so I don't really have the time to go hang with my friends.
Yeah.
But a lot of our friends who had kids younger are now, free and can go do what they want. So there's ups and downs to both. But
Definitely.
I bet you in a few years, you're going to be looking back and being like, okay, now I have time. Now I can do all that.
I sure hope so.
Yeah.
I think it's been really cool though, like despite not necessarily having the women, in the community, like because we're at the station a lot, like the guys will hang out with the boys, and play with them when we're there. So it is kind of nice because then it's like, I can just go to the station and have an hour just to sit, and I've got built-in babysitters. So that's been kind of fun.
That's a really good point. You can at least sit and like relax, even if you can't leave them, right?
Yeah.
But you can at least take a break. That's really nice. I like that. Now, moving forward, I guess you already kind of mentioned this little segment, I guess, that I've been doing called Shift Happens, where you got an open fracture in your toe while your husband was at the fire department. Any other things that you can think of, any funny stories or maybe not so funny stories of things that happened while your husband's at work? Of course, it couldn't have happened on a day that he was home.
Right. Nothing really, actually, that's not true. I was going to say nothing really.
Literally everybody says that. They're like, no, nothing actually. There are 10 stories that popped in my mind right now.
Well, I was going to say, usually it's just like, the boys are more chaotic because they're better behaved with dad, And we've had things like my two oldest boys share a room and they've locked themselves in the room before and stripped naked and then like just destroyed the room. And I've had to like take the doorknob off. But I would say actually the biggest shift happens was I went into labor when my husband was on shift. And
are you kidding?
I am not. So I do home births, and my first two were like pretty long labors. My first was 26 hours and my second was 13 and a half. So I mean, like when baby decides they're coming, then it switches really fast and baby comes. Okay. But usually I've got a long buildup before that. And I had dealt with prodromal labor for like 2 weeks beforehand. So every time I moved, I had a contraction that felt like it was real. And so there were a couple times where he asked off work because he thought that I was in labor. And then I felt bad because I wasn't, And so he went to a PM shift at his part-time station, which is only 16 minutes away. And I had been having the prodromal labor and I went to bed and I felt like the contractions coming a bit more consistently, but didn't believe it because I had the prodromal labor for so long. But once I realized that they were getting consistent and that this was real, I called him, which thank God he answered because a lot of times he doesn't answer when he's at work. He's busy. And I told him, I was like, I'm pretty sure this is real. And he thought, because my contractions were still like 10 minutes apart, he's like, oh, I've got time. I can make my bed and pack my stuff up and say bye to my friends and yada, yada.
Oh, no.
And so about 45 minutes after that phone call, when he should have been home at that point, my contractions were every 3 minutes apart. And so I'm like calling him, where are you? You need to get home. Thank goodness my mom was there because she had been staying the night just in case, like on days that he worked, just in case so she could take the older boys. And so she was there and was able to get the boys up. But by the time he got there at 12:30 a.m. I gave birth at 1:30 a.m.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was probably the craziest thing that's happened on shift. And his chief still gives him crap about the fact that he was like just taking his time.
Take your time, have a cup of coffee, hang out. Your wife is pushing your baby out. Like, please.
It all happened so fast that time around that my midwife almost didn't make it. Like, which was just so shocking for all of us because the last two labors were longer. But I guess third kid, so you have to expect it to be faster.
So my husband is a medic, as I mentioned, and he during medic school had to deliver babies. As part of your training. And so he had to do a bunch in the hospital setting while training. And then after that, whatever happens at work happens at work. And he always says, so he's delivered, I think 12 or 13 babies or something. Wow. And he always says, it's always it's the third kid. It happens super quick. You end up having a baby in your kitchen. That's always the one that happens at home, right? Because they just come right out. So I'm not surprised to hear that. I'm glad that he made it.
I am too. I am really glad that he made it. Yeah. Wow. He almost didn't have time to get out of his uniform before.
Wow. Oh my goodness. That's crazy.
All this stuff happens when they're gone. I mean,
always, right? It's so nuts.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, what has made you decide to homeschool your kids?
I mean, if I'm being frank, I just don't trust the public school system. Like, we are very big on our faith and like, obviously it's our kids' choice if they want to follow the Lord or not, but we want to teach them what we believe. And there's just a lot of indoctrination, I feel like, in a schooling system, whether it be, for all of the like pride stuff and whatever. And there's nothing like, I'm not here to judge, like that is people's choice, but I want my kids to form their own beliefs rather than being pushed one way or another. And even when it comes to like sharing our faith with them, like we're going to make it very clear, like they're still young right now, obviously, but as they're able to form their own opinions, we're going to make it very clear, like, we want you to make this choice. This is why it's important to us, but ultimately, like, you are your own individual. You need to make the decision. I also just feel like the public school system in general does not teach life skills anymore. I mean, at least around here, like even things like cursive, like kids don't know how to do it. I have a 10-year-old nephew and he like doesn't know how to read an analog clock. And it's just stuff that's like, I feel like we should be teaching our kids these things. So like we'll do probably the co-op type deal too, where they go once a week and get taught by somebody else. But I just feel like it's important, like, as a mom, to protect them from whatever happens in the public school system, whether it be even just being surrounded by the wrong people. because obviously I can't stop bad things from happening to them, but I can protect them as much as I can. But also giving them the opportunity, like we have this unique opportunity for Steph to be able to school them too, and like have dad home and do all the trips and stuff. And so really, it boils down to also just having them home and being able to have that family aspect because it's so important to us. So, and our boys are like delayed on some things, but like very quick learners on other aspects. And I was kind of like that. I was in the gifted program, which really just means that you have ADHD and you're not diagnosed. But I struggled with that, where like I had some things where I picked up really fast and I had other things where I really just could not get it. But like it was so hard for me to be able to actually learn in my learning style. And so at least for the elementary years, like we want to be able to cater to their learning style. And then as they get older, if they decide that they want to go to public school, then we'll have that conversation. Like I'm not necessarily opposed to that, but these years when they're younger are so formative. And so we just want to make sure that they've got a good foundation.
Yeah, that's super interesting. With only respect, I wonder, do you think that your thought process of like, we don't want people telling them what to think and indoctrinating them, right? But if they're not being exposed to it because you are at home not showing them those things in hopes of protecting them, like I recognize what you're saying. Do you think that maybe you're also unintentionally doing the same thing?
I think that there's certainly a possibility of that. And so while I don't want to say shelter because we're not wanting to shelter them, like I think that it's really important for them to experience things. I think that's another reason that we actually want to homeschool is so that we can get them out and do life with them and let them experience, so I'm not going to like say, oh, well, we're going to go to the zoo and like hide from all of the things. Like, we're going to allow them to ask questions and stuff. I just feel like, at least from what my friends who have kids in school say, like that there's just a lot of pushing on one end and like no leeway for another, especially as like Christians. I feel like there's a lot of criminalizing of like Christianity, which don't get me wrong. There are some people who are advertising themselves as Christians and not living it. And like, I know that a lot of Christians have totally ruined the faith for other people. But in the same regard, like we want to teach our kids that, like, first off, our faith is okay, and if they want to believe it, they want to believe it, but also how to love everyone the way that the Lord calls us to love and to ask questions. And so like, I'm not going to be one of those moms that like keeps them at home or like keeps them in their own like kind of little group. I think it's really important. And I was homeschooled for the like formative years, I guess. And my parents did a really good job of like, I was in marching band still, and I was in orchestra and stuff like that. And so I think that gave me the opportunity to really learn independence and learn how to believe things on my own. And so that's something that I really want to do with them, like still get them involved in community events, still let them do like, in Ohio, at least it's required by law that homeschoolers can still participate in extracurriculars.
Yeah.
And so I want to allow them to do that and, really just give them the opportunity. Like, I don't want to throw them into like bad experiences, obviously, but give them the opportunity to experience the world and ask questions and all the things and like give them room, to learn, I guess.
Yeah. I work with some families that homeschool and their kids are not bored. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
They're very busy. They do a lot of activities. They have a lot of friends still. So I know the general idea, or like not idea, but the misconception, I guess, of being homeschooled is that you don't have friends, you don't see the world. And that's not necessarily true, especially if it's done right.
Right.
I guess being from a very incredibly liberal state and being pretty liberal myself, I think I worry that, and not that this should in any way influence your choices, just kind of a conversation, right? Yeah. I worry that, not everybody is equipped to homeschool. Not everyone is capable of doing that. And the more educated you get, I think the more, actually, I believe the concept that you're saying, like love everybody, accept everybody, you make your own choices within your home, but being able to accept that somebody else's choices are different is easier as you learn that, biology is biology and things like that, right? So it doesn't change how your family life would be. I guess I just worry that if we all homeschooled, we would not necessarily be able to recognize all of those things. Do you see what I'm saying?
Well, and I certainly think that there are some people that should not be homeschooling their kids.
Right. Not everybody is built for that.
Right. And like I said, like I do feel like they're unfortunately like a lot of the Christians that you see or I don't know anybody's heart. I can't judge anybody's heart.
No, yeah, I know.
But like a lot of what you see is the negative side of it. But like we as Christians are called to not judge. Like we're called to love one another. And for me, like ultimately, while I believe that men and women are supposed to be with each other and that all of the like other stuff is a sin, also I'm a sinner. I do my own bad things. Like, and so I don't have any space to say, you're a terrible person because you do this. You get to make your own choices. I make my own choices. And so like, it's really important to me to just like teach the kids that because like, I had campers who struggled with a lot of different things and like thought that they were going to hell because of X, Y, and Z. And I was like, no, like just because you do something wrong, like even if you're a believer, does not damn you to hell. Like you have to have a relationship with the Lord, sure, but like you're still going to screw up. Like I still screw up. And I just feel like, unfortunately, like there is that really far side of homeschooling and Christianity in general. That's like, oh, well, you do X, Y, and Z, then you're automatically a terrible person. It's like, well, you seem to forget that like we're also all bad people inherently, and like that's why we need the Lord. So
right, I think that's the important distinction, right? Like that's why faith can be important because it guides you to do the right thing, but it doesn't it doesn't exclude you from also making mistakes. Whatever your definition of a mistake may be, what you're saying is important that, I'm not here to be the one to decide what your sins are.
Exactly.
That's it's an interesting conversation. I agree with you that not everyone is built to homeschool, but that doesn't mean you're not going to do a good job at it. I'm sure that you are. And I like that you have the nature piece, the outdoor piece that you can provide for your children, because that's something I think that here in my home and our life that we're missing a little bit, because it's just, we're not in a physical location to be able to do some of that stuff. So I think that's really interesting. And there are a lot of kids who benefit from outdoor stuff more than they do from indoor stuff. So kudos to you. That's great. I got to tell you, I am very excited that my daughter will be in 5 days next year and starting in the fall. And then, moving forward, my son will also be as he gets older, because I work and I'm busy, and it's, you're still a person and you're still allowed to have time to yourself, and being a homeschooling mom, that might be difficult. So kudos to you, power to you.
There's definitely part of me that's like, man, do I really want to do that and have them home?
But you'll be flexible. You don't have to do 7 to 4 every year, 8 to 4, whatever, I don't know, whatever school hours are, Yeah. Right. That's cool. Do you have a curriculum that you have to follow, right?
So basically the way that it works in Ohio, at least, is that you're given certain benchmarks that the kid has to meet by the end of the year. And I don't remember, I never had to take a standardized test when I was doing the homeschooling to say that I matched those benchmarks. So there's definitely some honor system as far as the parents go. But there are so many different curriculums, and there aren't necessarily you could pick one curriculum for math and then a completely different curriculum for history or whatever. So it's nice because it's kind of flexible based off of what the kid really vibes with. We found a cute little curriculum for pre-K, and it's more home study based, but it's all of it is learning through chickens, which I think is great because we have chickens, it's very applicable to the kids. And so we might do that, but if they don't like it, we're not down to it, which is really nice. And obviously I'm very aware that when they are older, they're not going to be catered to by any means. But I think it's great that there's so much of an opportunity to find kind of what works with them, in order to help them thrive. So I did one math curriculum and I hated it, and we switched to another one. It was great. I still got what I needed to learn, and we moved on. The other nice thing about it is that if they do quarterly, you have to report quarterly, or at least that's how it used to be. And so if your kid meets all of the requirements for kindergarten by the end of the first quarter, then nothing's stopping you from doing the first grade stuff next. Cool. So that's really nice because there's just a whole lot of flexibility and a timeline for that.
Yeah, that's great. They'll learn a lot of stuff that they wouldn't learn in school, although they'll probably miss some stuff that they would learn in the public school system. So it kind of balances out in the end.
Exactly.
Yeah, right. Well, very cool. What advice do you think you would have for somebody, especially you as a young person, as a young mom? What advice would you have for somebody going into your position as a firewife?
I honestly would just say not to view it as a burden. I think that a lot of times we can, I know it's hard for me, when he gets forced overtime, or I have to be real, I am not looking forward to the 13 months of paramedic school because he'll be gone a lot. But I really believe that our mindset can really make or break the home. And while for us and for a lot of people, the husband is the head of the household, he's gone for a third of the year, and so I'm the glue that holds everything together. And so if I have a bad attitude about, overtime or him having to do training or whatever, then that's going to directly reflect on my kids. And I don't want my kids to have that negative attitude, And so I think it's really important to, as much as possible, have a positive mindset, while also understanding that, yes, it is hard and it's okay to struggle with it 100%. But when we view it through the lens of my husband gets to be home 2 days at a time, and when he's done with paramedic, he'll get a pay bump and that'll be great. And it's only 13 months and stuff like that. And really try and look at the positives, that really truly transforms just the whole life in general. Because I could look at a 24-hour shift and say, man, it sucks that my husband's not home and I have to parent by myself. Or I could look at it and say, this is an opportunity for me to really spend one-on-one time with my kids, or, to go on a trip with my mom, and go somewhere or whatever. And that's something that it was a learning curve, because it was such a huge shift from what he was doing before. I mean, he was going to school and bartending. And so he was busy pretty much every day. So on one hand, it was nice because it was wow, I have all this time with my husband, but then also learning to do bedtime by yourself and adjusting to being home by yourself. I mean, I remember when we moved in here, it was the first time since he had started firefighting that I had been completely alone when he was gone, because we were living with my parents when he got his first job. And so that was an adjustment for me. But I definitely, I can tell both in myself and in just the household that on the days that I have a good attitude and I speak positively about the job and everything, then it uplifts us so much more than on days that I really struggle with it. So that would be my biggest advice. Really try and find positives whenever you can. Not to discount the hardships, because those are definitely there. But if you dwell on the good things rather than the bad, it definitely will make a world of difference.
Absolutely. I think that's fantastic advice. Looking at it glass half full, pretty much.
Yeah.
It's always, everything has hard pieces. Everything has a hard aspect, no matter what your job, what your life. But just remembering that there's more good than bad, I think is really important. An old friend of ours used to say, I couldn't wait for my husband to take overtime. I mean, older than us generation-wise, right? In an older generation. And I kind of going into it, I was like, wow, when is that going to happen? When am I going to be yes, he's taking overtime? It almost put it similarly, in a bad light, right?
Yeah.
I was kind of anticipating that I was going to be excited for him to leave.
Yeah.
And it hasn't happened. Like, am I as like, oh no, he's gone? Maybe not because we're busy. We have kids, we have life, right? But I agree with you. I'm happy when he's home. I'm happy that I have that time at home.
Yeah.
And it's going into it not expecting a negative outlook, or I guess not setting yourself up for failure is probably a good thing that comes out of that.
Yeah. Well, and I definitely think there needs to be more of that just in the fire community in general, because I feel like, I mentioned the Firewives conference and just the negativity surrounding it. And like, it was even things like the fact that our husbands like put a lot of their identity in the fire service. Well, absolutely they do. They live there for a third of their life. Like,
how can you not?
And and then there was a lot of it on social media just about, here are all the hard things, or here's all my icks. And it's like, when we put that out there, then we're automatically creating a negative headspace for, newer wives coming in. And I know that I'm still a new wife, in the grand scheme of things. It's only been 2 years, but I think it's really important, like, because the fire wife life is so different from other people, like learning how to adjust to the overtime, or like expecting your husband home at 8 o'clock and then he catches a fire and he's not home till 2 or whatever. Like, there's such a learning curve. And I think that if we as a community start talking about the positive things more, while still understanding the hardships, but like really highlighting the good things, that it would really change just the culture in general, especially for new women coming in, because that was really disheartening for me, when I had first started, to hear all of those things, because like, I don't want to end up like that. I don't want to be like loathing the job or upset when my husband, reps his station or whatever. Like, I want to be proud of that. And, that definitely was something that I faced a little bit of backlash for. But I'm grateful that I've held that mindset, because then I've been able to create or start creating that community for other women as they come in, or as they start having kids in the fire service or whatever, to be able to say like, yeah, it's tough. And everything usually does go wrong when he's gone, but here's all the good things.
Yeah, for sure. It's good that you still have that mindset. I agree. It's important for us to try to keep that and to reshape the way that people view it.
Yeah,
absolutely. I wonder too, if I still think of myself as a young person, just so you know, and maybe a decade.
I would consider you a young person still.
I think our husbands, our generation and younger, maybe recognize some of this a little bit more, whereas maybe the generations who are older than us, it really was like, what I say goes as the man, and you just deal with the rest at home. And so maybe our spouses are better at trying to help us find a balance as well, which is why we're able to maintain that positive attitude.
Yeah.
Most of the time. Obviously, some days are going to be bad, right? But like the general idea you have being a fire wife is overall good, not just like don't do it, right? So I wonder if we're fortunate in that way, because times are a little different than they were 20 years ago or 50 years ago or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, my last question for you is, any shows, podcasts, books that you absolutely love, something you highly recommend?
Not really. I like... There's a part of me that's kind of like tried not to dive into the just fire stuff, if that makes sense. Just because I don't want it to completely shift my mindset, because for us, I'm so grateful that my husband is one of those people where like, God first, then the family, then the fire service. And then he's been very clear about that in the fire service. Everybody knows his family comes first. And if he has to go do something or somebody's sick, like, they're going to honor that. Yeah. And so I think that we found a really good rhythm, which obviously will kind of change like when he's in med school, and that's going to be hard. And I think that a lot of people have a lot of good advice, but I'm an overthinker. And so I can often like take people's advice and then start feeling like I'm doing something wrong, or like, why am I not doing it this way or whatever. And like, I know that that's like totally a fault of mine, but because of that, I really tried to focus on like, okay, what just works for us, and talking to people, sure, about, their experiences. But I feel like because ours is so unique in that, like, he was my husband before he was a firefighter and stuff like that. Like, because I'm pretty sure everybody that I've talked to married, like, they were firefighters when they got married. So it's just like a really like unique experience for us. Right. I do really, there's an Instagram, Hold the Line at Home, I really like, and a couple others I can't remember off the top of my head, but there's some really good like positive fire wife and just fire life Instagrams that I like. But I'm also in a stage of life where it's really hard for me to listen to podcasts all the way through or read books all the way through, because I've got children all over me all the time. Right. So yeah, nothing in general. I mean, really just, this has been a season of learning, honestly. And like, I know it's been a season for my husband of learning how to be in charge at home, but also be in charge at the station. And that transfer of like, obviously we have to hold different expectations at the station for the guys than we do for our 3-year-old son. Of course. And that's a tough transition, and like learning to give him grace for that. But yeah, we've not had a lot of time to really go down the book rabbit hole or anything. It's just been taking it day by day. So
absolutely. Yeah. I don't think I listen to much or watch much that's fire related either. I think we have enough of it at home. And so I like to broaden my horizons a little bit.
Do other things. Yeah, for sure. Well, and we go to the station so much, like, and the boys have all fire everything. So it's like, I'll go down, I'll do my own interests. We'll listen to other things.
Exactly. We're all Spidey everything here in our house. Everything is Spider-Man related. So not so much fire stuff, but
we've got more fire trucks than I think any kid should ever have, but that's okay. Because my family too, like once he became a firefighter, it was like, let's just give them all fire trucks. They love it. I mean, like my 3 and 2-year-old, they can tell you the difference between a tanker and a rescue and a ladder. Like, so I'm like, I don't want to like push my kids into the fire service if they don't want to do that. But we're also in the Cars stage right now. They don't get a whole lot of screen time, but we've watched Cars more times in the last year than I think I've ever seen it in my entire life.
Yeah.
And so Lightning McQueen and Mater everything as well as the fire trucks.
You gotta love that. Honestly, once kids love something, they just stick with it for so long.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Any
fun.
last stories or thoughts? Anything that you wanted to share that I didn't touch on?
I don't really think so. I mean, the biggest thing, like I said, was just having that positive mindset. You know, I'm really truly so grateful for this job from my husband. I mean, like, it's been so cool to see him like just find something he's absolutely passionate about and like to really see him blossom. Like I said, like, I mean, he's in charge already on his shifts and they're pushing him for lieutenant and like just things that are like totally crazy. Like he got full time before even having a year and a half on the job. Like, so it's been really cool to see him just really blossom. And I think that like it's important for people, especially women, to know like, yes, you can love the fire service, but you can also love your own things. You know, like you don't have to like, while I'm so very proud to be a fire wife, like I definitely hold that title with honor, but like also remembering that on top of being a fire wife, like I'm a mom and I am these other things. You know, but like I said, just holding that positive mindset and like, you know, allowing space for your husband to come home and talk about the calls and the things that he enjoyed and the things that he struggled with and stuff, and just finding that balance. I mean, it takes time, you know, and I know you know that. But yeah, nothing in general, just that.
Yeah, that's great. I think that was part of what prompted me to want to do this podcast, right? Like you are your own person and I want to hear about you. It's not all about them.
I've loved listening to the different stories, you know, and just hearing like what people are passionate about. I think sometimes I get in the mindset of I'm just a mom, you know, but like I really do so much more than that. Yeah. And while being a mom is such a great blessing, you know, like I am going to be a mom forever, but these kids aren't going to be in my house forever. So like, you know, learning to still do the things that I enjoy and have things outside of that. So it's been cool to hear everybody else's stories too.
Absolutely. I mean, that's how you lose yourself, right? If you just think of yourself as I'm right now, and most of our energy has to go into being mom right now, but you're still a whole person who deserves to still have some time and some energy put into who you are, into you know, blossoming that as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, this has been lovely. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you.
Bye. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed being here as much as I did. If you have any questions for me or if you'd like to be interviewed, please reach out at thefirewivespodcast@gmail.com. You can also follow me on Instagram and Facebook. Tune in next week for the next episode of Firewives.